Hello and welcome back to the Tabletop Team Podcast. I am your host, Joe, and it's the podcast that won't die because I dragged these two out of their graves from Ohio. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
What's up? I'm Michael, and I finally made my way out of the Shadow Realm, so success on that.
I am still in the Shadow Realm, which is Ohio. I don't know where Mike is. Mike, can you hear me?
Hello.
This is Don Julian coming at you, pre-recorded live as always. If you don't think this is a live episode,
Then you're absolutely right.
look out your window, Jonathan. There's a dude out there that's really getting it right now.
Our
He's
one
like, "Oh my
listener is
God."
absolutely shitting their pants. It's me. I'm a one listener.
But he listens like 12 times. He's got like a database in India that they're just swiping.
So, top of the episode, it's been a couple months since everything's happened. We've had some bad recordings. We had some good recordings. I've gone through a horrible cycle of depression and laziness. So, to bypass that, we hired a wonderful editor. He was on a couple episodes. Jason, or that guy, So and Jay. Thank you for editing. If you notice a little bit of a different editing style, it's because we got someone who's better than me.
He's not from Ohio. That was my only requirement.
What are you talking about? It's all Ohio.
We gotta have more people out of state.
Except Florida.
Everything's Ohio.
Listen, Ohio's purgatory. Like,
Yeah.
we're all dead here. We just can't ever leave. All the roads are under construction, and that's why we can't leave.
I've seen this episode of The Walking Dead.
The last episode that came out was between me and Julian, and we talked about difficulty and challenge ratings. Jason edited that one, which was, I thought really good. And in it, towards the end, I believe, we said we might consider start doing episodes where we do one full episode where we just talk about D&D stuff and another full episode where we just talk about board game stuff. We might go back to the old format. We might not. We'll see. This week in time, I'm dating this podcast. It is the 26th of September. So much new D&D stuff has come out in this week that it just seemed like we should just make a full episode on it. So, we don't want to lose a listener, but if you're not into the D&D stuff, come back next time in, 2 weeks, and it'll be just a board game type thing.
We'll double the board games.
So what do you guys want to talk about first? We got the book and we got all the new preview stuff.
I mean, I feel like we should hear about the book first.
Okay. I have the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, a Feywild adventure book. Just came out this week. I desperately tried to find PDFs for these two to take a look at, and nowhere on the internet could I find them for a reasonable price. So instead, I'm just going to have to talk about what's in here, and we'll go on from there. The first and most foremost thing, in my opinion, the most important stuff, is the player options. I believe we talked about this in a previous episode when they released a Unearthed Arcana on the Fey folk. In this particular book, they've officially released the Pixie Race and, hold on, make sure I get it right, the Haragon race.
Oh, come on. They couldn't just call it Rabbit Folk. I really loved when you called it Rabbit Folk.
Listen, the rules are just guidelines.
I'm going to be saying Rabbit Folk, but it's officially called the Haragon. It's Harengon. Haragon. We're just going to dive right in here. I'm just going to tell you what the Pixie Race does, and then what the original Unearthed Arcana is. We'll talk about it, and then we'll go to the Rabbit one, and then we'll move on from there. Traits are character type, you're a Fey, your size is small, you have a walking speed of 30 feet. At first level, Druidcraft cantrip. At third level, you can cast Fairy Fire. And at fifth level, you can cast Enlarge and Reduce. Due to 5e's new thing of being like, hey, have fun with your races. You get pretty much any race. You get 2 in 1 skill, 1 in 1 skill, or 3 points in to put in 3 different skills. And they also have Flight, which is equal to your walking speed, but you can't use your flying speed if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. Very simple. Now, I believe the main difference between this and what was in Unearthed Arcana, originally the fairies in Unearthed Arcana had a thing called Fey Passage, where you could squeeze through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide, but they do not have the Enlarge Reduce spell. So what are you guys' thoughts on this fairy race?
Listen, I love that with this book, we're one step closer to fully realizing the Avengers meme of Ant-Man should have just gone up Thanos' butthole and just expanded.
Yeah.
One step away from peak comedy. That's all I'm saying.
One thing that I find interesting, it was in the Unearthed Arcana, did that have the stipulation where if you were wearing medium or heavy armor, you couldn't fly?
No, it does not have that stipulation, actually.
Yeah, because I remember us talking about this, and this totally throws it like, oh, well, can I carry stuff? Like, what am I carrying? I feel like we talked about this last time. Kind of takes that away.
I mean, it's a basic balancing mechanic, just like how wizards can't wear heavy armor unless they're proficient to like prevent them from having like ridiculously high AC and like almost unlimited magic output damage potential. It seems like,
yeah,
because otherwise, and this is a problem with almost every game ever, is there's almost always a meta, and there's always going to be like, oh, if you do this as opposed to this, it'll be ultimately beneficial and more well balanced for your party. And I kind of like it. Because, I mean, first of all, the idea of trying to craft plate mail for a, 2-inch tall pixie just sounds like a fucking nightmare for any
it's only
blacksmith.
2 plates. It's only 2 plates. It's just these little
it's
things.
like
2 nickels.
what does bikini armor look like on a ferry? Like, how ridiculously small is that?
I don't know, but I know a website that we might be able to figure it out.
Two things that stand out to me, and I had this same problem with the fairy in the Unearthed Arcana as I do in this book, is it's Wizards of the Coast refusing to give us a tiny race, or what's the next size up from big, large, right? So like they refuse to give us a proper sized creature for whatever reason. I don't know where the balancing comes from. I don't know why that's a decision. Maybe, some mundane Googling could answer it, but I'm not doing that right now. And I just think that's very interesting to like refuse to give us something outside of these small or medium categories, even though pixies are always like hand size, right? Like even in this book, there's a lot of things about them being super tiny and stuff. Taking away the Fey Passage is interesting choice, but I guess because they give you the enlarge reduce, you could be like, oh, I get really small and I can fit through it now, but still.
How large can you get with that spell? Just
one size big category bigger.
But you can also put that onto someone else?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, like, in theory, you can make ancient dragons even bigger, but you can also make pixies even smaller. Or I feel like that has to have, like, some sort of disadvantage or something to attack it, because it's something that's really tiny, and, like, to accurately do that in 6 seconds while also running and fleeing for your life, it just seems a little unrealistic. I don't know. It sounds like it's fun, and you could just permanently make a character as small as humanly possible with like a little curse. Like, oh, you pick up a ring. Yeah, it immediately casts reduce on you. You can't, it doesn't end, and there's no saving throw. Good luck being 1 inch tall.
Is that a spell? How many spell slots?
So with a class or a race feature, it's usually a once a day.
Oh, okay.
Like example, Drow can cast Darkness once a day. They can also do what else? I can't remember what else. Well,
Hellish Rebuke.
That's Tiefling.
I know they can do Dancing Lights. Drow can. We're not perfect at this, people. Why are you listening?
Listen, if I wanted to watch 3 idiots talk about things they don't know, I just watch the news.
That's where we're going next. We're going to have a whole current events section of this podcast.
Oh God, please no. My mental health is already like flatlining. I can't make it go any lower.
It's fine. We're talking about D&D stuff. I do find it interesting because, we've had the fairy stuff and there's a couple of other new things. I do like the idea because in the fairy magic, it does specifically say, because I skimmed over it, but not only can you choose your spellcasting ability for it, but you can, if you are a caster and you have these spell slots, you can cast that spell again, which I really like.
The enlarge and shrink?
Yes, that and fairy fire.
So, because I'm just thinking about what Mike said a minute ago with the Ant-Man Thanos thing, and maybe that, but also just because if you're an arcane trickster, you can shrink down real small. Well, now shouldn't you have advantage on that attack? And also, does your movement, do you still get 30 feet even if you're a little tiny thing?
I think your movement speed stays the same, which doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, because now you're zipping through the, zoom, especially because you have fly.
Just a reminder that I'm pretty sure enlarge reduce also like proportionately increases or decreases your weight. So yes, you are getting smaller, but also your weight is being reduced.
The target size is half in all dimensions, and its weight is reduced to 1/8 of normal. This reduction decreases its size from category. Target has disadvantage on strength checks and saving throws. Target's weapon also shrinks, and you do 1d4 less of damage. Can't be reduced less than 1. Yeah, so like your movement speed and stuff isn't like affected technically.
I mean, at that point, you become the lockpick, and you don't need thieves' tools.
Yeah, so if you're playing as a rogue, you can sit there and get through some stuff. I don't know. That'd be a really fun character to play.
I mean, rules is written. You could technically be a level 3
assassin rogue.
No, it's a fighter class. What is it? It's like it's rune, the rune knight. And at level 3, you can use your ability to go to large, and then it automatically makes you like, it doesn't matter what size category you are before. It says you grow up to large, and then you can use your turn to cast enlarge on yourself and go up another size category to get real big.
Now this just makes the Pixie Barbarian just seem that much more amazing. Just Pixie Barbarian Rune Knight, just, oh yeah, there's this tiny thing flying at me. Right before combat, I make my size category large, and then I make myself one size category bigger with enlarge. Then I action surge to do fuck all damage right at this guy's goddamn eye.
Isn't it giant and then colossal?
Tiny, smaller, medium, large, huge, and then gargantuan.
Gargantuan just needs to be replaced with fuck all the way off.
Don't they ever give like a how big things are in feet?
Yeah,
kind of. They usually represent it as just like a 10 by 10 square or a 20 by 20 square. Like, it's never really like, oh, it's this feet long and this feet tall, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from a size perspective. But I guess for like map making, it makes it easier for the DMs, which we all know most of them are supremely overworked to begin with.
So moving on, the next race that came out with this book, I should have not closed it, but I found it very quickly, is the Haragon or Haragon rabbit folk. We're calling it a rabbit folk.
There it is.
Surprisingly, your creature type is humanoid, not fey. You can choose your size to be medium or small. You have a walking speed of 30. You have an ability called Hair Trigger. You can add your proficiency bonus to your initiative rolls. You gain proficiency in perception skill. When you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can use your reaction to roll a d4 and add it to the save, potentially turning the failure to a success. You can't use your reaction if you're prone or your speed is 0. And then the biggest improvement, which I know we talked about when we were talking about this originally, Rabbit Hop. As a bonus action, you can jump a number of feet equal to 5 times your proficiency bonus without provoking opportunity attacks. You can use this trait only if your speed is greater than 0. You can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses on a long rest.
That sounds immediately better than what it was originally, where it was like add a d8.
It's so much better that I don't even remember what our problem was.
I have it right here. So it's kind of funny because they did keep it as it was humanoid originally. It's just kind of weird because it's specifically from the Folk of the Feywild document. So I guess I just assumed rabbit folk were. Oh, they were originally called rabbit folk too. They changed the name. Stupid.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Ah, jerks.
Pretty much everything's the exact same except for that hop, which originally was once during each of your turns, you walk at least 5 feet. You can hop, rolling a d12 and moving that many feet in a direction of your choice.
Yeah, so you could have moved 1 foot.
Which makes 0 sense.
It all boils down to the whole D&D grids being 5 foot by 5 foot squares. And that just making it insanely more complicated.
Okay, so you got a proficiency bonus of 3. You can jump an extra 15 feet.
Yeah.
Per long rest.
3 times a day.
Oh, 3 times a day.
Yeah. Without opportunity attacks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, I think that's a really cool one too. Because you could just jump backwards, right?
Yeah.
You know, as often as you want. I don't know. I think that I like this now. I hated it before.
You hated it because I talked you into hating it, to be honest.
Hey, who cares why I hate it? I agreed with you. I'm glad they changed it. So did enough other people.
Hearing the old version, it just like makes me want to pull my hair out because it's like, oh yeah, I am like 32 feet forward. Okay, well, I don't have any way to accurately represent that. So we're just going to either have to basically nullify that ability or round up.
It was originally basically a free action along with your walking speed, with your movement action, to now have to be a bonus action. I do like that.
Yeah, because I don't think we talked about this before, and maybe I wasn't understanding, but it sounded like as long as you move 5 feet, you can jump 1d8, or was it 1d12?
Originally, it's you roll a d12 and move that many feet. The new one is your proficiency bonus times 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's sweet.
This will probably apply to Mike more because he's played more than me. What are your thoughts on 5e Wizards of the Coast moving towards this? Your skills are attributed to your proficiency bonus instead of your skill modifier.
I mean, in one way, it makes it so, like, as a player, it makes it kind of suck because now I'm getting less opportunities to do that until like super late levels. Whereas, like, I could be a level 1 wizard with 20 intelligence and do that 5 times a day versus 3 times a day. But that being said, like, ultimately, it's a free ability that I can do that doesn't really cost me a whole lot. And especially if you're going to play any sort of caster, you get stuck in melee, you're stuck in melee, and there's not a whole lot you can do. Short of Misty Step, which you can only do it 3 times a day. Well, that effectively just gives you 3 more Misty Steps per day, and that gives you a little bit more escapability. It's better in the long run, in my opinion, because eventually I will overtake that max 5 times a day, unless you're playing ridiculous god level stuff.
So what is the max proficiency bonus that you get if you're level 20?
+6.
Oh, okay. But otherwise, your skill bonus would always be a +5, even if it was 20.
It wouldn't always be +5. +5 is just the maximum you could get.
Well, that's what I meant. Not always be that, but I meant that was the max you could get. Now you could get 6. It's like going from 10 to 11.
There's plenty of ways to circumvent that. There's magic items that boost your scores past that amount.
Oh, right.
Fire giant, hill giant, strength, whatever.
There's a lot of books that permanently give you a +2, but then they become like innate for the next 100 years. But again, it boils down to min-maxing. Like, you don't always have to be the best at everything. Yeah, it's easy to become attached to the characters that you play and like really emotionally invested. But you can play strategically. Like, if your character is afraid for their life, like, it might be shitty, but running is always an option.
Or unless you're the rabbit folk, and then you're hopping.
Unless you are fighting something that has a greater movement speed than you could always run away. Or if you're a pixie person, you can just shrink yourself into oblivion, go between the molecules or whatever it's called.
Those are the 2 new races. They've added a couple new backgrounds. I'm scanning over them mainly for the features because you really could just make your own background nowadays. Well, you always could. It was in the player's handbook, so.
I'll be honest, I don't really ever pay attention to background. It's just like, oh yeah, you get 2 proficiencies in like a language or something like that.
I just picked the background for the free stuff.
I know it's helpful for characters.
Some features work very well, others don't. I don't really want to go through too much of this book, even though nobody's going to listen to this, because honestly, most of this book is an adventure book. It's a story, it's a quest people can go through. I probably won't run it myself because it's hard for me to follow these books.
Yeah.
And not go off the beaten trail.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting about this book is so many things in it are anti-combat. Now, again, I've skimmed through this over 200-page book. I've skimmed through it. But the things I've skimmed through, I have not seen an option where you have to fight, which I think is a very interesting way to start running D&D, which is as much as we love the role play, it is still a very combat-focused game. What are you guys' thoughts on a pacifist run in D&D?
I kind of like it because it's kind of gently going to nudge the players against being murder hobos. I know it's like it's an easy thing to fall into because that is kind of what D&D is based around.
I feel like it would be an interesting session because it might focus a lot more on puzzles and trying to solve things in a more creative way. I mean, even if you're playing with people that, you don't want to have a whole bunch of combat because it could, it gets, I know for me, sometimes it gets really complex having like a bunch of abilities right away. Having a bunch of passive abilities kind of makes that a little bit more fun.
I really like this too. I obviously can't show it. It's a podcast, but they have these role-playing cards. This is honestly like a really good tool for DMs. It's a very short paragraph that gives the person like a brief description, gives their alignment, their personality trait, their ideal bond and flaw. Just like bam, bam, bam. There you go. That's what you need to know to role play as the character for your PCs.
That actually is pretty sweet, yeah.
Okay, so like I really like that. I've never been a huge fan of DMing pre-written adventures just because I get into this panic of like my players are not doing what they're supposed to do and I don't know how to get them back to it. And a lot of times if I need to look something up, it's like in a block of text and I have to sit there and try and focus. And it just grinds everything to a halt. So just have something in like a nice little like stat block essentially. It's just I can look at this, it's this number, blam, I can keep going. It's not rereading through paragraphs. Oh, was it here? Was it here? Was it here? You know, it's quick. It's look down. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, let's go.
So there's so much we could talk about in this book, and we're not going to dally on this for much longer. But the only thing I want to say that I really liked about this too, there's a overarching side quest that they give the DM to set up right at the beginning, where it gives you a table with a DA and you roll, and there's an item. I'm not going to go into too much details again for spoilers, but I still think that this is more of a peek behind the screens for the players. But you roll and it tells the DM where to hide the item, like throughout the world.
Okay.
Hey, look, everybody has this side quest, but not everybody's, if you follow the D8 chart, not everybody's going to be solving it the same way.
Oh, right.
This session is the news.
The next big thing was there was a whole D&D celebration this past weekend. And some of the things they did was they released previews for their next 2 books that are coming out in the next 2 months, and we'll probably do another review type thing over those, but maybe not a whole episode where we'll see how good they are. The first big preview that came out was for Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight is like an adventure module, like that's the primary focus of it. It's a whole quest campaign thing you could play through with players. I believe, if I'm correct, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons is going to be more of a new source book, new monsters, new race options, probably some new spells, new magic items, all sort of put together, focusing on dragons. Now, the good news for this section is it's all available online, so my co-hosts actually have the materials in front of them, so it won't just be me reading from a book.
It's going to be all 3 of us reading from a book.
Right. we're gonna print screenshots and then put them into the audio file, and then it's just gonna play a screen reader of that screenshot like 5 minutes into the podcast, and everyone's gonna love it.
You two kind of came in with this with a bunch of things you wanted to talk about, so how about you one of you lead this off?
Okay, I'm gonna start off with the metallic dragons, specifically the new breath weapon. I think it's a really interesting idea. I like the fact that you can replace attacks with it. And also, specifically, I was looking at Enervating Breath, which makes it con saving throw or become incapacitated until the start of your turn. Personally, I really like that. It gives you a lot more creative solutions, especially when it comes to later games where you're fighting monsters with legendary resistances. That gives you another option to fight bigger monsters. And as a DM, I always love throwing big monsters. Yeah, I can throw you like 4 or 5 of one thing, or I can just throw you this fucking troll that's just gonna fuck all your shit up, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And I'll make slight peek behind the screen. I also cheat with like HP and stuff as my players to make it not like super. Oh, you either win in 1 round or it's a TPK. I'll like give it special abilities on the fly just to make it a little more interesting, make the fight a little scarier. This whole Enervating Breath really just gives you the opportunity to throw bigger creatures at your players. And I think you can't always do it every time, but every once in a while when you get hit with that big creature like, oh, fuck, we might die. I love seeing how quickly creativity comes out of it. And it's not just, oh, I cast Fireball. It's this. It gives a little bit of unpredictability to combat.
What's wild is I just took a few moments while you were talking. I was listening to, but I was also multitasking. I can do that.
Listen, I have a 4-year-old. I'm used to people not listening to me.
But the Enervating Breath is a really cool thing to be like, oh, you're incapacitated now. It's not really like, it's not something you see a lot of people can inflict without reducing your hit points. But I was comparing it to the metallic Dragonborn that was in the Unearthed Arcana for all the Draconic races. And what's most shocking to me is the only thing that he changed is the damage die for the initial breath weapon attack. They had all of this stuff out, the whole enervating breath, the repulsion breath, which you strength save or you get pushed 20 feet. But the breath weapon was originally 2d8 of damage going up a d8 at certain levels. Now it's 1d10 of damage going up by 1d10 at said levels.
Like, I honestly feel as if this publication makes Dragonborns a more fun race to play, and it's not just, oh, I'm a big lizard man with this one ability that I'll never use because I can only use it once a day, and it kind of, like, by the time it becomes relevant, I have better magic weapons and spells that I can use that are just going to easily outclass this.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is changing it so when you take the attack action, if you have multi-attack, you can replace one of those attacks with a breath weapon instead of the breath weapon being your whole attack.
So the other Dragonborns, though, it's still a once-a-day breath weapon?
All we have right now is this metallic Dragonborn. Player's Handbook, specifically, it's once a day, your action is breath weapon.
Right.
According to this Unearthed Arcana, which, if we're going to try to compare what's in this compared to what is now official material, it looks like you can now do what I just explained, where if you take the attack action, and if you have multi-attack, you can do one breath, and then you can hit or punch or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it basically boils down, because, like, I think at level 20, it's like, what, 4d8 originally for one action, which, if you compare that to a wizard, or, like, any caster, that's a cantrip. Say you're a level 20 fighter Dragonborn, you can forego 4 attacks for whatever amount of damage for effectively one cantrip, and that's your entire turn. And I think this makes it just a little bit, like, it makes me want to play Dragonborn more.
I will say 1d10 once a day that, you know, it's not getting blocked at all, right? Or I guess you do con save or something.
There's a saving throw, so you're at least taking minimum of half damage.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it makes it slightly better than a cantrip, because most cantrips, unless you have special class abilities, are, if it has a saving throw, if they save, there's no damage. So it's at least comparable. I think it makes martial classes a little more interesting, and not just, oh, I go up and hit it with my sword. I don't know that there are things you can do to make it more fun, but it very much feels as if you get trapped into a one-trick pony. And to be completely honest, if you're a low-level fighter and you get hit with monsters that are immune to damages that aren't magical and you don't have magic weapons, you're basically pointless in that whole fight. Like, there's nothing you can do.
So I'm looking at this, and there's a couple things I was wrong about. So you start off with 2d6 of whatever your damage type is, and then at 6th level it goes up to 3d6, 4d6 at 11th level, and then 5d6 at 16th level. And you do get the breath weapon back on a short or long rest. I thought it was once a day, but if you take a short rest, you get it back.
I mean, still, the points I made still apply, where, like, as any martial class, like, foregoing 2 or more attacks are just pointless for basically a slightly better cantrip.
So here's a question I have that is kind of more, I don't know where this category would fall into, but what's up with the metallic stuff? I know that we got the metallic dragons last time, but if we're looking at them, like, a dragon that's brass is just fire, bronze is lightning. So we're not really changing any of the damage type. What's going on? Where are we getting these new metallic dragons from? Like, what are they doing in the D&D universe?
They've always been there. There's the chromatics and the metallics. The really new dragons that are coming out are the gemstone dragons. Metallic dragons are typically good aligned. Chromatics are typically evil aligned. And then the gemstone dragons are typically going to be neutrally aligned. That kind of brings us into a good segment of talking about this Moonstone Dragon they released.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
First and foremost, an amazing tool of role-playing. I mean, its layer actions specifically are, like, all dream and illusion-based. So, like, you could really, like, pull out some, like, deep role-playing trauma and stuff to your PCs with these abilities.
No DM would ever do that.
What I find extremely interesting, so this is an adult Moonstone Dragon. There's no breath weapon attack on it. It's just a bite and a claw, legendary resistances, and then it has its layer actions. It doesn't have a breath weapon, which I find very fascinating. Now, could they potentially add one when the book comes out? Yes, but I feel like it would be on here.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like that as a decision. It just feels like thematically its whole basis is illusion magic, and like not having a breath weapon kind of sticks it to that realm of like, no, I'm gonna fuck with your head.
My only problem with that, Mike, is you can only do that illusion stuff if you have it in a layer, right? And I mean, I think that's where, from my small window of experience, that's like, yes, that's like 99% of the time where players are going to be fighting a dragon anyways. But it has no spells, it has no breath weapon, it just has melee attacks, and then it relies solely on his layer actions to do this illusion dream magic. You know, if they keep it exactly like this when the book comes out, that's very interesting to me. I'm not against it.
Yeah, it does seem like a themed dragon, where kind of like what Mike was saying is like, now you're like locked into this specific, you know, fight where it's all head games and stuff. I think that's kind of an interesting thing because, yeah, like, I mean, the attacks aren't crazy. I'd have to go against this dragon to see why it's so scary, but attack wise, it doesn't seem so crazy.
Well, also, it's so adult dragons typically are not the most deadly dragons, obviously, depending on what level party.
The elder ones?
Yeah, like ancient dragons are the big scary fuck-all dragons.
Right.
But like also, if you're putting this in a campaign, I could very much see this just as your players are reaching a peak where they can start to unlock like planar travel and access to the different planes. I feel like this would be a great gateway fight into the planes, and like maybe it can be overpowered for them and they can't beat it, but maybe instead of killing them, it just like banishes them to a different plane that they weren't on previously. I mean, nothing's perfect on its first try, and I'm sure there will be updates and re-releases of anything of this nature, but I think it can be a lot of fun. It'll be fun to see how it works, how people encounter it, and everything of that nature.
So one thing about this Unearthed Arcana that we're doing that I think is really cool is this new Ranger subclass, the Drake Warden. I'm digging that you get a dragon as a little companion, and this thing just gets bigger and bigger as you get bigger and bigger.
I'm going to be honest. I am surprised that 5th edition has been out for as long as it has, and we're just now getting a dragon companion. And like Dungeons and Dragons is the name of the game. Like this takes Beast Walker or whatever classification of Ranger it was previously, and it just makes it so much better. The fact that it can, you know, it scales with you, so it's not super overpowered at the beginning and then irrelevant at the end. It just kind of seems more like a lifelong companionship as opposed to just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use you for 5 levels and then you're gonna instantly be killed by any attack that the enemy does.
Yeah, talking about the scaling of it, I think it's really cool because when I was reading through it, you know, you see it at level 7. Oh, it can start like swimming and you can ride it and everything. But then it's like, oh, it can fly, but you can't ride it. And then, man, once you're like level 15 where you're really kicking ass, you can start flying on this thing and you can make it huge. Well, not huge. You can make it large, I believe.
Large, yeah.
Yeah, large Drake. That's even cooler because now you have big old dragon and you can ride on it. Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, being able to fire a bow and arrow while riding on top of the flying Drake, is that not the dream?
Yeah, man. But I also like, because this companion really is going to be in the attack, it takes its like actions like right after you. I mean, oh yeah, it has a reaction, so you don't even have to do. Okay, yeah, that's right. So you can only move away or you can only dodge or something during its turn. But if something attacks it or if anyone attacks anything else that's within 30 feet, it can then infuse it with whatever power it has or whatever damage type. So if you are like, hey, I just summon a fire Drake, well then now everyone is going to be able to, like what we were saying just a minute ago, where it's like, hey, look, if you're a fighter and you don't have any magic, well now if someone has a Drake companion with you, now he can summon that thing and have pretty much any damage type. Hey, hopefully we found out the weakness for this boss or whoever, and now everyone's hitting him with poison or everyone's hitting him with fire or something.
Note to players, don't pick poison.
Or fire.
What does it do? Is there
both of those are like the most commonly resisted damage types.
Nice.
Outside of just like blood.
See, and that's why I'm so new, man.
Are you familiar with the Homer Simpson meme where it's like, he's like really skinny in the front and like looks like attractive, and then the back's like all it's like there's only 4 creatures there's only 4 monsters in the monster manual that are resistant to poison, and then the back on his back it's like there's like 70 creatures that are just immune to it. So
right.
Yeah, so I did the thing where I compared this to UA, and again, everything is identical except for the Drake Breath at level 11. In the original, it started out as 66 of damage, and now it is up to the base is 8d6, which is just a fireball, basically. And then it goes up to 10d6, and the Unearthed Arcana went up to 8d6. So I definitely like I like the little damage boost there. It's like, might as well just give you a fireball. Once you get that high of a level, it's like you got a wizard that's already casting fireball at 10th level.
All memes aside, like wizards get access to spells at like a 5th level that can do 8d6 worth of damage to multiple targets.
Yeah.
Like, it's the classic meme of like, don't play Ranger sucks. Even Joe Cat, who does the amazing how to play crap guide to D&D, is like, with the Ranger video, it's just play fighter with a bow. It's better. It makes it more fun. It takes a categorically unused class and makes it more, again, meta relevant.
And again, like, just don't play the Player's Handbook Ranger. There's the revised Ranger, which you can get for free on the internet, and then Tasha's Cauldron Ranger is better. And, you kind of pick which one fits the mood better, because I was bored making a bunch of classes, a bunch of characters, and, I had one character who was the revised and one who was the Tasha's Cauldron. It just depended on the kind of build you wanted to go for, and both were very viable. And, good old Henrik from my Barwalk campaign, played by Jason, is Mr. Crazy Stupid Damage. And I'm trying to talk him into becoming an assassin rogue, take 3 levels of that so he does even more damage.
I'm trying to see, but I think I played the character Lou Tennant. And wasn't he a ranger? I can't remember.
No, he was a paladin.
Oh right, yeah. But I know I made a ranger.
Was that Gato Man?
Oh man,
yeah.
Was that? Because I just saw his character sheet too right here.
That was a while ago.
That was like beginning of lockdown
it was
ago.
Gato Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow. That's right. He was a ranger third. He's a folk hero. Yeah. Okay. So he was the ranger. I was wondering who it was.
All right. So we won't take too long because there's not much here, but we will talk about the Strixhaven stuff that also dropped. Strixhaven, A Curriculum of Chaos, is also another book coming out in November. In all honesty, it's another Magic the Gathering tie-in. But apparently one of the big things about it is going to be a social mechanic that they're bringing in. So a lot of this stuff they've shown are like, if you get a job or if you join a club at the college or you make a certain friend, you get different boons and banes depending on that. And, I don't know how viable it is, but I do like the idea of now making your social status more applicable to a game. I know, technically speaking, I think it's in the Player's Handbook. It might actually be the Dungeon Master's Guide, but there's a system, you can add another stat called Honor, which is kind of cool, but it's like so hard to implement. It's like you have to be playing a very specific type of campaign to implement that.
Is that where you like the more good you do, the better you are, and then the reverse?
No, it's more like, like if you're like a royal person, like you could use your honor to be like, hey, like this is my status. Like I'm using my status, not like my skills.
I'm from Ohio. I'm important.
The negative 10 charisma modifier. It's interesting. The big problem that you see is like with the whole murder hobo aspect of D&D, it quickly becomes like once your players reach level 5, like unless you're throwing entire fucking armies at them, no one can really stand a chance against them. Like, if your players like just break the law of the land, like there's no one to stop them. Your players essentially become the completely overfunded police of that realm, and no one can stop them unless you drop a dragon. It adds a little more of a kind of like social balance where like, yeah, just because I have this power doesn't mean I should use it or abuse it to bend the world to what I want it to be, because I'm the ultimate authority on things.
But one thing that's not on here that they didn't announce is there's a new feat called Mascot, and you get the Find Familiar spell, and you can summon your house's mascot as a familiar.
Oh my god.
And apparently there's this whole quote-unquote not Quidditch wizard game where the houses are trying to like capture each other's mascots to get points. Which honestly, like, this is one of those things where I'm actually kind of like, I would love to run like a bunch of college kids, a bunch of college wizards. Somebody has to play the mage barbarian though that we've found.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna be a pixie barbarian pass to the mage. I don't give a fuck about min-maxing. It'll be hilarious.
It'll be the funniest shit. They also have this thing for the Owlin.
It's fucking adorable.
They don't have actually any stats for the race itself yet. I mean, there is the Unearthed Arcana one, but this image they have of this guy is like pretty badass. He looks like a guy who you'd want to go to a party with.
He totally has a raptor claw.
He would probably bring that party out into the woods and turn it into a game of manhunt with guns.
This is definitely just like Crocodile Dundee D&D version. Like, that is 100%. That's not a knife. This is a knife.
So is Strixhaven just pretty much a knockoff of Harry Potter?
Copyright.
I hate to say the word knockoff for it because it looks like it's pretty in-depth, but I meant like you are essentially at a school learning how to be magic.
Copyright and like everything like in that realm is just kind of a weird amorphous blob, because like if you really think about it, Harry Potter's just like the 1990s version of Star Wars, where this like powerful orphan and with an aunt and uncle living with them that like hates his onboard power, and they suppress it until some wise old man comes and rescues him, and they go off and do fantastical shit.
I do think they called Obi-Wan a wizard at one point. Space
wizard.
Like
original ideas are hard to come by. There's a million different forms of media. You've got TV shows, movies, books, fucking radio, podcasts even. At some point, one other person has probably had the same idea you have. And so the fact that like, oh, is this copying off Harry Potter, or is Harry Potter copying off of D&D? Like, inspiration can come from anything, and if you change it just enough, you can get away with it.
I guess they changed it just enough.
Now, here's the thing is I've never seen Harry Potter. I've never read Harry Potter. I know the base of it, and from what I can tell, it's like elementary through high school years, and Strixhaven is college, which is a similar but very different animal. And just a cursory glance at the internet is it definitely is Harry Potter inspired. The thing is, this is a book that comes from Magic the Gathering cards before it.
I was going to ask that, yeah, because I saw those decks for Strixhaven.
Yeah, that was like their whole last expansion or something like that. It was released in April 2021. I'm just reading these comments are funny. One person's like, I'm definitely not buying this. It looks garbage. And then the next person's like, totally buy it. This is going to be the first book I buy.
Oh my God. I love when there's that much controversy over something. It's like, okay, no, I'm interested in not or buying it.
Listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 5e has changed my life. I've met some amazing people. I have 2 amazing friends and co-hosts now. And it led me to...
Oh, also me and Mike.
Yeah. And it led me on a road trip halfway across the country and back because of it. So I'm always into this stuff. I love seeing the new stuff they come up with while keeping it within like the same rules we know. But that's, I could go on forever about this. We need to wrap this up. It's late. Do you 2 have anything any final thoughts on all this stuff we've talked about?
I do just want to make one more comment on the extracurriculars at Strixhaven's. One is called Live Action Role Playing Guild. And I just think that is just so funny that in an RPG you get to
so meta.
LARP. But otherwise, no, man. I'm looking forward to making that Ranger, the Drake Warden. That would be a really cool thing to play next.
Just double down, make it like a Drake Warden metallic Dragonborn Ranger.
Ooh, that'd be fun, actually.
Who's going to Strixhaven?
Yeah, he's going. He plays in the Intermoral Silk Ball Club.
Overall, I'm impressed by this. I think it sounds really fun. It definitely feels as if D&D has been more of like, oh, you don't have 3.5. Oh, you're just like too dumb to get D&D. And it's not just like simplified and diversified. And it's like not everyone plays the game for the one aspect that you and your friends do. And that's totally fine. Like if you want to do more role-playing combat or more combat than role-playing, that's fine. If you want to like fuck around, go build a tavern and bankrupt the whole goddamn economy, become tyrannical overlords but like Beth Bezos, just do whatever you want.
I would play that campaign.
All right, gentlemen, anything to plug?
Charge your phones, people. It's an important thing to do.
All right, my computer's almost dead. I will be plugging in this later. But otherwise, no, nothing tonight. I don't have anything, but I'm working on it.
If you're playing Pokemon Unite, I'm main a support and I need like teammates that I can actually communicate with. That'd be great. Absolutely no one's going to hear this, but hey, I'm putting it out in the ether.
So first off, plugging our editor, twitter.com/@SoEnjay. That's SOENJAY. Maybe his services are up for hire. If not, he's going to cut this out.
Oh, Joe, you didn't even get it right. It's at Sir SoEnjay. At SIRSOENJAY. And as for services, sure, send me a DM.
You can email the show, the Tabletop Team Podcast @gmail.com. You could tweet at the podcast now, not just my personal DM, which is just me retweeting G Fuel ads to try and get free G Fuel.
What's up?
But you can tweet the podcast at the Tabletop Team Pod. So you can email or tweet that. Again, links are in the description. Please send us in your topics, comments, questions, and suggestions, because good Lord, we need them. And you can tweet me at DM Joe Thunder. That's all I could think of. Welcome to the Tabletop Team.